So much to get to on today's Philadelphia 76ers now as the Sixers have gone from doc to nurse. Did you think I could do a show without saying that? And if you like the Sixers hiring of Nick Nurse, I need you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I did an immediate reaction video yesterday that's up on the channel, but more information trickling out as far as why the Sixers decided to bring him in as the next Doc Rivers replacement. So hit that thumbs up icon, like the video if you like the hire, and let's start the show. All right, welcome in. This is Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Coming up on the docket for today's show, more nuggets about this Nurse hiring. Could the Sixers be bringing in Fred VanVleet to reunite him with his former head coach and Nurse? And we also have the latest on James Harden, as the Rockets' interest in him is real, but the Sixers' interest in bringing him back is also a potential reality. Before we dive into all of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Anytime breaking news happens, we cover it here on the show. When there's a big development, we also discuss it. Anytime something is transpiring with this organization, we inform you, we entertain you with insightful Sixers coverage year-round. We're less than 400 people away from a massive milestone of 10,000 subscribers. So if you like what we're doing and you haven't subscribed, hit that sub button right now. To the latest on Nick Nurse, let's begin there because this is one of the biggest storylines across the NBA now, as the Sixers got a hot commodity for teams looking for a coach, as he was arguably the most sought-after coach on the market. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, Nick Nurse choosing Philadelphia over the Phoenix Suns. That comes as a little bit of a surprise to me. I understand that Kevin Durant's getting a little bit older, but still an elite two-way player. And Devin Booker, one of the best bucket getters in the sport. You still have Chris Paul, a couple of other pieces. So for Nurse to pick the Sixers over the Suns, it goes to show you the value that this job had when it was open and vacant after the firing of Doc Rivers. Also, Nurse's desire to coach Joel Embiid and work with Daryl Morey, who he was hired by with the Houston Rockets when he got hired to be the G League head coach back in the day, also played a role in the decision for Nurse to come to the city of brotherly love. And a big reason why the Sixers really like Nick Nurse is that he sold ownership and Daryl Morey a vision on a team centered around Joel Embiid. So let's kind of segue to that. There have been a lot of Joel Embiid trade rumors circulating after the Sixers' no-show in Game 7 against the Celtics in the second round, in which Joel Embiid flat out gave up in that second half. Nick Nurse was only taking this job with the Philadelphia 76ers if he knew Joel Embiid was going to be the centerpiece of this team. And if you bring back Joel Embiid, still has 3 more years left on his contract. His value is never going to be extraordinarily high like it is right now. He's at the peak of his powers. The last 3 years, he's progressively gotten better and better and better. He just won the MVP. So Nick Nurse is a great hire for a team that is ready to win right now. We saw what Nurse was able to do with the star player in Kawhi Leonard back in 2019. It was his first year as a head coach in the NBA. They won the NBA championship. The next year, they won almost 60 games, and he was the NBA coach of the year. So when you scan the landscape of the Eastern Conference as you're in Nick Nurse's shoes, you're saying, okay, this is a team that hasn't made it past the second round since 2001. But we have a star player in Joel Embiid. We have a cost-controlled asset who is a blossoming star in Tyrese Maxey. A couple of good other young pieces and other complementary pieces on this roster with an ownership group that is willing to spend. And when you scan the landscape of the East, it's going to be wide open next year. Are the Miami Heat going to be able to go on another magical run? Are the Boston Celtics going to break up that duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? What does the future of the Milwaukee Bucks look with Giannis as they hired Adrian Griffin, who's never coached in the NBA before? Outside of that, a lot of question marks across the East. So the East could be up for grabs for Philadelphia, and that's why the gig potentially enticing for Nick Nurse. The Sixers have an opportunity to compete for a championship next year. I'm not sure who Joel Embiid's co-star is going to be. If it's James Harden or somebody else, that's obviously an added bonus. But you have Tyrese Maxey, who can make yet another leap as he goes into year 4. History shows he can take that jump because he's done that every year he's been in the NBA. Joel Embiid is 29 years old. He's in the thick of his prime, coming off an MVP award. And there's a lot of uncertainty with all these teams across the Eastern Conference. Nick Nurse looks at this as a gig in which he can bring a championship to a team that hasn't made it past the second round since 2001, hasn't beaten the Boston Celtics in a series since 1982, and 1982, the last time that the Sixers organization hoisted the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Can Nick Nurse be the guy to get this team over the top? He does have some of the necessary traits that you look for in an elite coach, and he's been able to display that throughout his coaching career. Unlike Doc Rivers, Nick Nurse is a straight-up X's and O's coach. He can make tactical adjustments within a game and on the fly. He's been very good when he's had elite talent. NBA championship in 2019, NBA Coach of the Year the following season. Unlike Doc, for this organization that has been soft and enabling since the process, he will preach accountability. He will preach toughness. He's very good with his defensive schemes, and he's very creative as a defensive coach. He'll throw a double team toward a star player. He'll go box and one. He'll go with the zone defense. I love what Nick Nurse can bring to the table as a guy who is very good when the pressure cooker is on in the critical junctures of a game. And the Sixers have missed that with Doc Rivers and before that with Brett Brown. This is a team that's been in the mix. They're top 3 in wins since 2020, but they need that mental hurdle to overcome that softness to win that NBA championship. Maybe Nurse can be that guy. That's why I was an advocate for the hire. So with that, Nick Nurse is a top blank coach in the NBA. You think about Eric Spoelstra, you think about Steve Kerr. I think an elite coach is a guy who makes those adjustments on the fly. Nick Nurse certainly fits that category. Now to some Sixers rumors here. With Nurse coming in, what is the future of James Harden? Who will be Joel Embiid's co-star? Will James Harden return to Philadelphia, or will the Sixers bulk up the roster elsewhere? Here's what Woj had to say about some of these subject matters here. Nurse's desire to coach MVP Joel Embiid and his history with Daryl Morey played a significant part in his decision to commit to a deal with Philadelphia. Nurse separated himself in the interview process, selling a vision for the Sixers centered on Embiid. He'll now be a part of a Sixers organization that is working to re-sign James Harden, who is expected to become a free agent this summer. So according to Woj, the Sixers are working to re-sign James Harden. According to Mark Stein, the Houston Rockets' interest in reuniting with James Harden is, quote, genuine. But the Sixers have not abandoned hope of bringing him back. Now with James Harden, he's 33 years old, he's an aging player, he's been banged up the last couple of years, he's had some of those playoff no-shows. Let's give credit where credit is due. Did he win game 1 and 4 for this team against the Celtics? Yes. Did he put up a similar stat line against Boston as Jimmy Butler? Yes. But where was he in games 5, 6, and 7? Is he a great regular season player who's still capable of producing great numbers? For sure. His 2022-2023 numbers, they were pretty solid. 44% from the field, 39% from three-point range. He led the NBA in assists, but his playoff stats always go down. He has a game that sometimes is predicated on making it to the free throw line. And if you don't, because more physicality is allowed in the playoffs, that's a problem. If his jump shot abandons him, which sometimes it does as evidenced by the lack of field goal numbers, then that is a problem as well. The issue, and I've continued to state this with moving on from James Harden, is that if you let him walk, if he does go to the Houston Rockets, you're in this championship window, but who are you going to replace him with? Because the top free agent list is very, very thin as far as co-stars next to Joel Embiid. Now, if you're banking on Tyrese Maxey to be that guy and take that Jamal Murray-like leap, he's only an inch shorter, and his numbers in his first 3 years better than Murray's first 3 years, that can certainly happen. But Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet, Chris Middleton, D'Angelo Russell, Harrison Barnes, kind of the top guard wing options to replace Harden, and there are massive question marks with each of these players. Kyrie flaky. Fred VanVleet coming off a down year. Chris Middleton injury issues. D'Lo might just be a stiff. And Harrison Barnes also comes up small in some of these big spots as well. So with that, let's segue to this next question. Do you want James Harden back? B for back, G for gone. For those of you here for the first time, we love hearing back from the audience. I go back, look at what the comments say to see what you're all thinking. May I interest you in Fred VanVleet? Let's talk about that to round out today's show. After the news was made official that Nick Nurse was going to be hired by the Philadelphia 76ers, Fred VanVleet quote tweeted the tweet from Woj with a prayer emoji and the flex emoji. Does that mean that Fred VanVleet, who is a restricted free agent, if he declines his player option, he can actually become an unrestricted free agent and sign with the Sixers? So, Fred VanVleet to the Sixers. Can it happen? It can. This is how. All Fred VanVleet has to do, decline his player option. If he declines his player option, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He is free to sign with any team across the NBA. And could he reunite with Nick Nurse, where his career started to take off, entered a different trajectory, and he became a very, very good player, and after that championship, was able to land a massive contract. The raw numbers for Fred VanVleet. He is coming off a down year in which he did average 19 points per game, as well as 7 assists, but the field goal numbers were not good. A lot of those field goal attempts are going to come from beyond the arc. In previous seasons, those numbers were very, very solid. This year, though, 39% from the field, 34% from three. He goes missing sometimes. That's an issue. He goes ice cold sometimes. That, too, is an issue. And if it happens in a playoff series, when you're paying him a lot of money, it's the James Harden conversation all over again. 2 years ago, 20 points per game, nearly 7 dimes, 40% from the floor, nearly 38% from three. You'll live with that. Year before that, 19.5, 6, 39, 36 on the shooting splits. And the year before that, 41% and 39% from the field and from three with a lot of volume there. You can certainly live with that. I would be intrigued by a Fred VanVleet, Tyrese Maxey backcourt. Fred VanVleet is 28 years old. Now, he's missed some time over the last several years, but he's always a shoo-in to play 50 to 60 games. James Harden, on the other hand, is 33 years old. So if you're looking at Harden here as a guy who's pretty much a walking near triple-double every night, who's 33 years old, has shown some signs of decline, can't always count on him in the playoffs. If you want to get younger and replace that production with production that's at least close, and then you bank on Tyrese Maxey taking another big leap in year 4, that's how you replace some of that James Harden production. And does Fred VanVleet look at the Sixers organization right now as a desirable destination where he can still get paid, he can cash in, play a prominent role on a team that has an NBA championship hope, and he can pair up with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and his former coach in Nick Nurse to try to chase that championship? Very, very interesting, and did that tweet signal that he might have interest in this basketball team? We'll see. Pick a player. Who would you rather have between these two? F for Fred, J for James. Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll catch you next time here on Sixers Now.